and welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. I'm your host, Tim Spring, and today I'm joined by Senior DevOps Engineer Kim Ebert, and he's here to discuss Indicio's most recent product, the Proven Cloud Verifier. Thank you for joining me today, Kim. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Senior DevOps Engineer at Indicio. I've spent 15 years in engineering, and the last 3 in the decentralized identity space. Really enjoy working on complex problems from clustering to decentralized identity work. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, awesome. Well, no, we appreciate you taking the time to be here. In your own words, would you start us off with basically what is the Cloud Verifier and what does it do?
A cloud verifier is simply a cloud agent that can be spun up to verify decentralized identity credentials. In cloud environments, oftentimes there's organizations that are issuing credentials for the decentralized identity community, and there needs to be a way to validate those credentials. When we say validate, not only do we validate that the credential was issued from the appropriate issuer, but you can also retrieve the values of those credentials so that they can be used in your ecosystem.
Would you be able to give me any kind of real world examples so that people can kind of picture what that would look like?
Yeah, a classic example would be driver's licenses. Um, Driver's licenses are issued by the government, and after they've been issued by the government, different entities might need to validate a driver's license. For example, if someone's purchasing alcohol, they would need to validate that individual's driver's license. Now, in this case, if a driver's license was issued in a decentralized identity format as a credential, we could then validate that that was issued by the government and retrieve particular values from that credential, such as age or a predicate proof of the age, to validate that that individual could purchase, say, alcohol or tobacco-based products, for example.
All right, sounds good. So I'm curious, right? Obviously, we have kind of the physical equivalent with IDs that you were just talking about there. But how is the cloud verifier, maybe different or, more beneficial than however we've been doing legacy solutions?
A lot of legacy solutions are based on having everything in a centralized database. And one of the problems with a centralized database is this is a great place for hackers to try and exploit and basically get a list of everyone's identities from one source. And so this presents a great source of risk for organizations to have those databases opened up and shared with individuals. It requires a lot of certification work, a lot of overhead to gain access to those databases, if that's even allowed. And so one of the wonderful things about decentralized identity is that the credentials are stored with the individual. So for example, when I would go and say get a decentralized identity from the government, they would issue that credential, and that credential would live on my smartphone, for example. And so when another organization needs that credential, it would be requested from my smartphone and then validated that it has been signed by the government as a legitimate credential. And so there's no longer this large honeypot of information that hackers can easily gain access to. And the other thing that the decentralized identity community allows is limited disclosure. So I don't necessarily need to disclose my name and all of those details, only the details that are required. So for example, if I'm making a purchase of alcohol or something, I might only need to share my age, for example. And there are algorithms that allow me to share only a proof that I'm older than a certain age. And so I might not even need to share that I'm 25 or 40 or anything like that. Just a proof that I'm above the 21 age.
So I'm curious, right? Obviously, with the large database, right? There's a greater risk because obviously it's the honeypot, like you mentioned. Is there any protections in place on your side, right? If your verifiable credentials on your phone and someone gets access to your phone, uh, is there anything to keep you safe there, or how does that work?
So the in our particular application, there's a PIN code required to access your wallet, and that wallet is encrypted. And so if we don't have that PIN, we don't have access to that wallet.
So I'm curious, right? Obviously, the proven verifier is new from Indicio. Are you aware of any other verifying, applications out there? Is there anything that kind of sets Indicio's proven verifier apart? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are APIs out there that exist to do decentralized validation. You have to have a kind of an intricate knowledge of each of those steps. And I haven't done a market analysis to see if there are other products that cover this niche of having a verifier in place. So
All right.
it's possible that there are some other products out there that do similar things. The real benefit that we've been going for here is really simplifying the calls from an API perspective and a UI perspective to make it easy to use.
All right, very cool. So as far as you're aware, though, the legacy solution has basically been to use an API as opposed to an application. Is that kind of correct there?
So it's not necessarily a legacy
Oh,
system
it's just how
because
other people are doing
there are
it. Right.
APIs like ACPI and AFJ that you could go through and do the same thing, but you also need to know how to set up your endpoints properly and kind of a deeper understanding of the underlying technology. And so what this really does is just make a simple to use interface where in Indicio, we took care of all of the complexities of how to deal with the protocol. And then we just simplify a simple abstraction to you, either from an API perspective to do an integration directly into your application, or a web interface. If you just want to say, hey, go ahead and validate this credential for me while I'm sitting here, and yeah, I can look over the web interface and see, oh, hey, yeah, this is the credential I was looking for.
Okay. So I know a lot of the times, right, Indicio is working with open source technology. Was this built on open source? Is there anything that, right, if people were to, get it and try to use it, is there any, technology that being familiar with would be helpful?
Um, so we are built on open source standards, and we do use some open source software. And this is really beneficial because you can avoid vendor lock-in, for example. So if you find that, hey, Indicio's not who you want to be with anymore, or Indicio goes away at some point in the future, you can easily switch to another vendor that's providing similar services. And so, here at Indicio, we strive to avoid the vendor lock-in scenario. And we also want to make sure that if other members of the community want to get involved with your ecosystem, that it's using open source standards, so they don't necessarily have to choose Indicio as well when it comes to integrations. This also allows other vendors who have other systems in place to participate if they're using the same standards.
So if someone wanted to use the verifier, the Proven Cloud verifier here, how difficult is it to get started? Could I just download it and then I can verify whatever credential I find, or how does that kind of work?
So right now, you'd have to reach out to us at Indicio to get started, and we could set up either a simple demo. So, for example, if there's not an ecosystem you want to participate in, but you want to see how it works, you could contact us, and we could get a demo environment set up for you. Or if there's a credential on a network that you already want to do a verification of, we could easily set that up so that you could do that. So right now you'd have to reach out to us, and we could configure a server for you with access.
Awesome. Well, it looks like that is about our time for today. If you are interested in verifiable credential technology and would like to learn more, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to bring you some more educational content. If you have any questions or specific topics that you'd like for us to cover, please go ahead and leave a comment below and we'll be sure to read and address them. And thank you again to you, Kim. If someone was interested in learning more about the Cloud Verifier or just the technology behind it, where would you suggest they look?
You could certainly come to our website at indicio.tech. That would be a great place to get started. I know we have several articles there that can help you learn more about the technology as well.